ready for the second round? Oh, one more time. Are we ready? You can tell I wanted to be a rock star when I was younger. Okay, so I think everybody is in. Sorry for those that are snoozing and losing, but I think we're ready to kick off the first panel of this afternoon's session. So I'm really grateful today to have a lineup of expertise, and I'm going to bring out my little black book. Yes, I did work for a hotel technology company for 10 years, but you just can't miss a little black book. So for today's session, we're going to be talking about leveraging data analytics, to really maximize revenue and enhance the guest experience. We've heard from great speakers this morning a lot about the different data points, whether that's digitalizing the guest journey and the number of data points you can access in the guest journey, whether that's from pre-arrival or check-in or in-stay with WhatsApp messages, the chatbot, etc. We've also heard about the in-depth amount of data points, even from a sustainability point of view, and the number of data points that a hotel can be crunching. So let's just start there and open it up to the panel. Well, first I should introduce you, sorry. That would be a start. So let's start with you, Matthew, because you're the lovely gentleman keeping us company. Please introduce yourself.
I certainly will, and well done for everyone coming back after lunch. I didn't know whether we should do some well-being exercises on the spot, but we won't. So my name's Matthew Prosser. I have been in this industry for 30 years. Anyone beat that? Any hands? Yeah, there's a few. I love this industry.
There was just two.
Pardon?
There was just two.
There was two, which worried me a bit, but there we go. So I love this industry. I'm an ex-hotelier, ex-operator, and I'm a bit of a technology geek, which is probably why I went to the dark side some 20-odd years ago. And I remain in that role right now. I guess from a company perspective, the company I represent, AGILYSYS, has certainly over the years done some amazing things in this particular industry. We pride ourselves on data and how we can enrich that data, how we can create that single profile of that guest. We also pride ourselves on the velocity at which we can develop and release features and functions, perhaps something that's not necessarily accepted in this industry. We have I guess a mindset that things plod along. We want to change that. And I guess the final thing I'm going to say, and I think everyone in this room would have heard it before, is over the decades, we always hear about other industries doing better than us, particularly the retail industry. I always hear, oh, we need to be looking at what the retail industry is doing and we need to copy that. And my belief, my personal opinion, our company opinion is, no, we need to be leading. We need to be telling other industries how innovative we are, and people need to be looking at us. And hopefully over the next 40 minutes, we'll delve into a little bit of that as well. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alessandra, head of commercial for Resident Hotels. We manage two brands, which is the Resident and Sleepers and City Room in the Miscal product. I've been with the company quite a few years, and I've been in the hospitality industry for over 2 decades. I'm not as young as I look, but yeah, I enjoy here to discuss data and how we've been using it, bringing in some of insights that perhaps everybody can benefit from.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kasia Rudnik. I'm the Senior Director of Marketing for the Set Collection. We're a group of beautifully composed luxury hotels located in some of the world's best destinations. We also operate on the affiliation model for hotels that we don't own. Marketing, hotelier at heart, 20 years in hospitality. So, Matthew, just a little bit shorter than you. Always in hotels, always in marketing and digital marketing. So data is something that I love to get lost in and look at it also closer and see what it can deliver for our hotels, but also what we can deliver to the customers through what we see in the data.
Great, thanks guys. So we definitely have the expertise on the stage. So let's start with the overwhelming access that hoteliers have to data. But we all probably can agree that it's really difficult to make those data points tangible and actionable and actually input them. So let's start with their panel. What's kind of the most crucial data points that we should be looking at in regards to improving, enhancing, driving the guest experience?
If I can start, in hospitality, and I think you all will be familiar with this, we've been collecting data about our customers for years. And if your hotel is, any longer than 5 years, you've got quite a big database with a lot of different information. But I bet you that the one that you're using is first name, maybe sometimes surname, email address, hopefully, and then probably not too much after that. But I'm sure that for some of you, you have information that includes the type of wine your customer prefers and likes to drink. But then what do you do with this data? And I think that now it's the era in hospitality where we finally have been given some tools where we don't have to rely only on the legacy tools that have been collecting all the information but not really giving us any use of that information. And now we finally have those tools. So the battle starts of how to integrate and how to best use all that information that we have about our customers. And of course, I know we're also going to touch upon personalization, but that's where the cleanliness of data that you have and how you collect that data comes into play, and it becomes really, really important.
I definitely agree with you. We have been having data, we've been embedding data in our systems, in our people that relate to our guests, and that goes beyond their name and where they're coming from, is how we use the data and how we create this holistic view of the guest. And then once we have it, having the tools to really analyze it and create actions from it to make sure the experience is personalized at booking level, at entry level on properties, and also post-stay. What we do with it can really debate all the powers that the OTAs have. They've been collecting this data and using this data far longer than hoteliers have been. But now the technology allows us to access it, analyze it, and use it to have a return on revenue that can be quite profitable.
I'm going to come from a slightly different angle, and you guys have talked about, crunching that data above the hotel. I'm just going to say a couple of things in terms of in the property. All right, this isn't real time or anything like that, but it's about how the data transfers. All right, and if we think about all these applications at site level that all funnel up to a application of some description that allows the great marketeers to assess and analyze, I think what we should also be considering is when that guest is in property, perhaps not on a particular day, but over a period of time, in terms of how that data transitions from one touch point to another. And what I mean by that as a specific example is, I come to your hotel and I have dinner with my wife tonight. All right, I have a fantastic meal, the transactional detail is held, we've talked about those things before. But actually then, 3 months later, I return and I treat my wife and myself to a lovely spa experience. All right, I walk into the spa and I'm already in that system. All right, no one needs to ask who I am, where I'm from, but in front of the screen, the operator, when they type in my name, has a capability to understand that I already exist in the system. Maybe it's another touch point in the hotel, but for me, as well as the above property capability for those needs, it's also in property capability and how we share data during the course of the life of that property, as well as analysing for post-event needs. Just some further thought.
I love that. And when we look at in-room, one of the bugbears that I have as a guest, and I think it's really important that we understand guest expectations in terms of digitalising the guest journey, are at an all-time high. because we have the technology at our fingertips. So when I return to a hotel and they say, hello, Danica, welcome back, I'm like, cool, they recognize me, they remember me, they have a good PMS. I check into the room and on the smart TV, it says, hi, Danica, this is the weather in London, cool. But then when I scan the QR code to order my in-room dining and it asks me, do I have any allergies? Even though I completed that in my previous stay, as a guest expectation, this is a frustration point for me. So coming from the hotel technology side, Matthew, are we, realistically speaking, are we at that stage where we can be seamless and can truly capture guest preferences across the guest journey, not 20, 60% or 80%? Are we there yet, or are we still blue sky thinking?
I think the answer is yes to both those questions. I think we're, certainly if I speak from personal experience, we're absolutely on that journey, absolutely. I think you need the foundation to be able to get to the end point. I don't think it's blue sky thinking. I think it is eventually going to be achieved 100%, all right? So I don't think this is 5 years ago, 10 years ago where we were talking blue sky. And I think the other element as well is we always talk about the room, as hoteliers, we always talk about the room, the revenue in the room. You know, for me, it's about the guest. How much is that guest worth to you across all of your property, and how well can we report on that in an efficient time? All right, and that's what modern architectured applications can deliver. And the future then becomes a lot easier to achieve because it's only going to get better. And allergens is well, one of the most important pieces of information of data that we have to capture. And that is absolutely prevalent now. But again, it's about joining everything up, all right?
And I agree with that. We are definitely chasing the unicorn in trying to get all these systems to talk to one another. I think more and more hoteliers are now looking at how to achieve it. Where we look back 10 years ago, systems, we're trying to put all this system into play to make sure we were efficient. But now is how we connect those systems. We're not there yet. There are systems out there that promise the world, that work. Some do better than others. There are still a lot of legacy systems in a lot of hotels in the world that do not facilitate that integration. And to change that, it requires a lot of investment, and it's very difficult to prove the return. I know within the resident, we've always been, and not just with the resident, in my previous roles as well, the guest has always been at the heart of what we do. If we can deliver that hospitality, they're yours for life. They'll be your advocate, they will return, they will recommend you, and they will continue to book and stay with you. So how can in person that journey and that experience be delivered? It starts now with the digital journey. What we've been trying to do at the resident is provide the same digital journey in terms of guest expectation and guest experience delivery, and then our guests were finding on site delivered by our teams, and then to continue their journey in the post-day. So having those touch points and having that holistic view of the guest ultimately will provide that return and a way to fight the OTA battles.
Right. I think that holistic view of data, whether you are a very complex brand like RBH with a number of different branded and franchise properties, or whether you're an independent hotel chain of 4 hotels, it's a challenge to have that holistic view of data. Back to the panel now, can you guys kind of advise on what kind of strategies hoteliers can implement to really maximize the revenue opportunities? Let's say I have a great visibility of my data. I know my corporates, I know my segments, I know the behaviors and preferences of my database. How do I implement a strategy to make more money?
Are you talking post-stay or
I'm talking right across. It might be post-stay, it might be pre-stay, it might be upsell on property. Whatever kind of takeaways the audience and I can write in my little black book is what I'm looking for, Matthew. or to any of the others. Anyone want to answer that, shall I?
So I think you guys will definitely be able to talk more competently about post-stay. For me, again, I come back to that emotional connection that you have with that guest when they're with you on that property. That's the moment that you can capitalize on gaining more and more revenue when they're with you. I spent 8-9 years working within the stadium and football industry. And whether you're a Wembley Stadium or Arsenal, their finite amount of time to obtain revenue from you was being connected to that emotional event that was taking place. When they left that stadium, there was no more opportunity to gain more revenue from you. But when you were in the venue, that's when they had to capitalize. And again, that for me is something that I don't really hear too many people talking about. I always hear more about the post-day. How can we ensure that they return? Because again, we all know that returning customers are easier to obtain than new clients. But I tend to hear more about that because that's perhaps where we are right now in terms of where the data sits. The data sits in all these disparate products. We then wait for them to be funneled up, and then we analyze, and then we come up with a good strategy which has an ROI, has a return, it benefits everyone. But that tends to be what we do at the minute. The guest has long gone, and maybe they've looked elsewhere also. So we should think about in the moment decisions, in property decisions, in terms of how we maximize that revenue.
And Alessandra, when we were talking earlier, you had a good example. Was it with one of your suites where you managed to kind of drive some revenue, incremental revenues, looking at data and leveraging data?
Well, for us, it's very difficult, especially at the resident where we are an accommodation-only provider, so we don't have F&Bs and we don't have any other revenue streams while on site to leverage for revenue. So for us, it's purely about selling the room, selling a bigger room, and selling a room through direct channels, which maximize our profitability. So that's where data is really important, having it, segmenting it, that allows for personalization. And when you offer the correct personalization to the correct person, that person is always willing to spend more money. If you know their information, then you can offer an upgrade, a booking time or a check-in time, etc., etc. So for us, it's pivotal to optimize everything through personalization once we have the data that makes us aware through the communication, through the CRM, through the many different touch points, and really optimize that. So for us, the opportunities for incremental revenue are really non-existent. It's all about the room, and the data allows to do that.
And do you have an example, because we've spoken a lot about personalization, do you have an example, tangible example of what that might look like to a guest?
For my guest, is about receiving relevant communication. So by doing so, we have reduced our bounce rate, we have reduced our unsubscribe rate, our engagement has increased. It's not about how many people follow you, but what the engagement levels are. So that's how they all become advocate for you and your brands and your hotels and your teams as well. And we've seen all these metrics drastically increase because of that. Analyzing the data has allowed to segment by nationalities and delivering different comms to different countries and different bounce market at the relative time. So it all goes back to capturing.
We also use a lot of personalization much lower in the funnel. So when we know the customer is already making that decision to stay with us, we use a lot of dynamic content in our communication. And that's very often based, if they have stayed with us in the past, they are our loyal customers. Of course, we do have loads of information from our loyalty program that we can use. If it's their first time, then we use the data that we already have collected about them. So nothing sinister. Of course, we're looking at, what type of room they've booked, how long are they staying, are they traveling on their own, or is there maybe more people in the party? And then based on that, our content changes. So it will change in terms of the offerings of the hotel. So let's say if we have a corporate stay, one night, I'm not going to talk about what's happening in Paris to them, of course, because they probably won't have time to even leave the hotel. But I will tell them that we have the gym, which is 24/7, the breakfast starts at this time, and the bar closes at 1. But then if I have obviously somebody staying maybe with the family, They will have more information about the kids program in one of the hotels, what's happening in the city, what they can do in terms of activities. And then that personalization is very, detailed to their own choices. When we look at our loyalty program, then of course we will recognize what type of membership they have, what tier they're at, maybe even where they stayed in the past. If they've stayed with us already, then we know to welcome them back and not saying, welcome to the Hotel Lutetia in Paris. So that's very important in that customer journey, because also what you've mentioned, Danica, earlier was about the allergies, and they have to ask you again. Yeah. So of course, you want to avoid this. One last thing which we're using, and I'm really proud of that one, we've started testing that quite recently, is our post-stay survey information. So of course we do have a lot of returning customers, and they do receive their post-stay survey, they fill it in, and then that data goes somewhere, that score goes somewhere. If they had an issue during their stay, we do collect that information. And then whenever next time we contact them or they rebook another stay, we are changing our tone, how we speak to them. So if potentially there was an issue during their previous stay, we're not going to be very cheerful and jolly in how we're speaking to them. Of course, we take that under consideration and we change that tone of voice a little bit to adjust to that score. This is quite a new thing we've been testing at one of our hotels, but so far we can see that there's quite a good response to that. Yeah.
Great. And I just want to go back, Kasia, to your point regarding the dynamic content, which we heard about earlier on this morning. If I put myself as my old hotel marketing hat, how resourceful, how resource heavy is that kind of strategy to actually embed, or is it not as daunting as what it sounds like?
It's not. Of course, you have to think about different scenarios that are going to happen in your hotel. There's no way you're going to cater to 300 different people that will have different expectations. So you do have to build those personas, and also that's based on your target groups. You know who you're reaching out to, you know who you want your customers to be, and you know who you want to drive. Based on that, you kind of trickle down to all the different types of messaging, what they could be interested in. We also speak often to our very close partners and also to our loyal customers to get that information from them, what is important to them. That's also what our surveys include in the questionnaires, so that we can gather that information. But we've got 20 hotels, and my team is 6 people. So it's all doable. Of course, the efficiency, yes, but the biggest part of it will be the setup. Once you know how it has to look like, the architecture of the customer journey and this different dynamic content shouldn't really take you that long.
I was just going to ask a question, actually, away from technology. How many of your customers prefer being talked to, even post-stay? Do you engage with them on the telephone, or is 99.9% of engagement always in a digital format, even though you might have the data, that you've decided to talk to them rather than rely on an email or another message of some kind? Just curious.
No, really good question. We are a group of very luxury hotels. So you can imagine if the customer is spending more, they want to have that personal touch as well. And they do want to speak to our team. I would say that probably 40% of our leisure customers would love to have that human touch. But then also from our marketing communication and pre- and post-stay engagement in that communication, we're having some amazing results. On marketing communication, our opening rate is 52%, and our click-through rate is 8%. So it's huge. It's working.
And I agree as well. We are a group of boutique hotels, especially in the resident brand. And I'm a fan of technology. I've been driving it through the business for years. the human touches and what we deliver. So for us, it's a combination, making sure that we give the guests the choice of how they want to be talked to, how they want to deliver their feedback, etc. It will always start at checkout. How was your stay? Hope you'll see you back soon. And that interaction we find that makes the guest want to complete that post-stay and wants to leave a review and wants to deliver that message to the world that their stay was great or was not so great, whichever the feedback may have been. But the combination of both really works and has to be around the guest's choice. If you give the guest the choice, they will employ the tools that you give them to put the word out there.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm a strong supporter of, even though I work in the world of technology, I'm a strong supporter of that personal touch. Having worked in hotels, it's so important that you engage with customers. And last week I was traveling. I checked into the hotel that I've stayed in easily 100 times over the last few years, up to the front desk, and the person at the front desk asked the inevitable question, "Have you stayed here before, sir?" I thought, oh my God. Yes, I have. And I said, "But surely you must know that. I know the system you're using." Well, he said, "It just takes me a few screens to get there." Oh, okay, well, that's all right then. I said, yes, I have stayed there. And therefore, technology absolutely is a significant enabler to success, and obviously around data. But you've got to have the staff in a position that are able to communicate, and also to perhaps be underpinned by information that helps them also talk in that natural way to customers. But anyway, I'm sure we've all had that when we've stayed somewhere regularly.
Yeah, sometimes. Okay, so I want to kind of, discuss the elephant in the room. I'm not sure if people are thinking about this, but when we talk about the amazing things now our industry can do with data and personalize, whether that's communication or the booking engine and the booking flow, or operationally my guest experience on property, let's not forget the data breach that the industry has seen recently. According to Booking.com's research, fraudulent emails, scamming and fraudulent emails is up 1,000% from 2023. There's been some big stories regarding data breaches from very big brands in our industry. So when we look at the use of data, how can we ensure hotels are handling guest data ethically, responsibly, sociably? And what are your thoughts there? Because it's a challenge both for the hotels and for the guest.
I'll be very quick. I mean, first of all, I'm no qualified, certified data expert. I can only talk from our perspective in terms of the company we represent, and I'm sure other companies are exactly the same. We have a significant info security team that are in place. Obviously, the majority of our products are hosted and in the cloud. We were very fortunate not to have been touched by the CrowdStrike issue of a few months ago. But nothing leaves our organisation without info security signing it off. And yes, things do get returned if they're not right. So, if you don't have info security as the number one priority in your organisation, you should absolutely change that right now. That's what I would say.
It's definitely important. The more the system you use, the more the technology and the possibility for exchanging data and data leaving the silos where it needs to stay being breached. As technology evolves, also scans, etc., evolves on a daily basis. We're all touched by it on a daily basis. For us, is one, in the selection of the partners that we work with, where once upon a time we used to start our process. What functionality do you have? Would you integrate with? Now we don't get to demo version, to demo stage, without knowing where the data sits, how it's housed, how we exchange, and what business continuity plan and penetration testing they have. So if they've done their due diligence, then we can progress into the talks to see whether we want to adopt or not their technology. The second stage is training the team, make them aware of everything. So we invested quite substantially over the past 2 years in teams training, infrastructure, firewalls, etc. We do our own phishing test on a daily basis. There are thousands of emails that we generate to our own team to make them aware. Practice makes perfect. So we just want to make them aware that and make them capable to recognize a phishing email, etc. So, and after all, we use Booking.com, so you know, we all tested heavily on those results.
I think if I can just add to that, because I do appreciate that not everybody has got a power of a big company behind them. Something that you can also do is, to the point Alessandra made, speak to your partners, whoever you work with that handles your data or has any involvement with your data. Always, don't be scared to ask questions. Ask them to explain how it is handled, how it is protected, and how your customers' data will be protected. Because it's so important, like Danica said, also the stats, we know it's only going to, unfortunately, get worse. So definitely rely also on your partners.
Great, thank you. Okay, so again, sticking to the theme of data, because that is our panel session. We've still got some time, so let's continue. When we look at database decision-making in our industry, what does that look like in terms of real time? And I know, Matthew, you've got some really interesting thoughts on other industries that really leverage real-time data decision-making decisions in real time.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, this particular story led us on to doing something quite funky within the business, which ultimately will end up in production. But a number of months ago, we had the good fortune of spending time with the CTO of a Formula One racing team. I don't know if there's any Formula One fans in the room.
I'm a fan of Lewis Hamilton.
One. Have you been 30 years in the industry? No, yeah, okay. Anyway, the point being is that, of course, in Formula One, decision-making is pretty important. And we learned that this particular F1 team had somewhere in the region of about 250 sensors on the car. So if we draw parallels, 250 touch points, basically, on the car. Therefore, of course, at any one given time, they can make decisions on how they can ensure they can keep ahead of their competition or ultimately win the race. And we looked at that and thought, well, hang on. Again, in the hospitality world right now, if we were retrospectively looking at data, maybe it's a tire change in the hotel industry. If we were going to do that in 2 weeks' time, then we're probably going to lose the race. All right. And if this F1 team did the same thing and looked at data post-event, they probably weren't going to be winning the race either. So we took that philosophy. And we probably, again, just like others, intently looking at artificial intelligence and how that can benefit our industry. And we took a subset of data from 3 clients, and we put that into a particular AI engine. And this was looking at historical trends. And it was looking at historical trends versus people that were in-house. And basically, it worked on a propensity model, i.e., if we looked at Matthew, who's been in this hotel 100 nights over the last 6 years, if we were to approach him during his stay, what is the likelihood in percentage terms of him spending more money with you? All right. And what we discovered was that in the 3 properties we trialed this with, is that there was circa 10% of their annual revenue left on the table as a result of them not approaching their customers in the moment. So that then became a really powerful story. And we now have a couple of other clients that, again, are working with us to perfect this model. But it's pretty smart. And I don't think anyone else has really looked at it in that way at the minute. But the only way you can do that is by having the data in front of you, not across many, many systems, because they all have to come together, but it's in the moment. And if we can obtain another £10, £50 from these customers day in, day out, we're going to make more money. So it was an interesting story that led us on to doing something outside of the regular AI around upgrades and things such as that. And we hope at some point that will become something that we'll seriously be able to promote. So a nice story about real-time information.
Okay, anyone, before we open it up to the audience, anybody want to add anything more on real-time data decision-making? I think it's quite exciting and probably a little bit overwhelming.
Well, real-time data has been in place in hospitality for quite some time, especially across revenue management, across surveys, etc. You know, when we start experimenting with in-stay survey, make sure that you save that stay and that experience from that guest before he leaves the door. And so I can see how, over time, it can continue to drive revenue.
Great. Well, thank you very much, panelists. It's been really great planning this panel with you all and getting to know you all, and I look forward to coming and staying at your properties. So let's open it up to the audience. Guys, anybody got any questions that you have for the panel regarding how hotels can really leverage data to really enhance guest experience and ultimately maximize revenues and drive profit? Anybody got any burning questions or comments?
It's a listening audience, isn't it?
Charles is putting you on the spot. Or has anybody got any good examples where they want to show off of what they're doing either at their property or in their company that the rest of us can learn from? Because that's what we're here for today, to really kind of learn from each other. Okay, RBH, yes, we knew you would.
I've no good examples, but just got a question.
Can you hear at the back, or does he? I think Scott might need a microphone. Steve.
Just gathering, we gather so much data from guests. Is there a risk that it could be seen as becoming invasive to the guests?
Good question.
I think that would be governed by the...
Sorry. Do you want to repeat the question?
Sure. We gather so much data from the guests, so many data points that you discussed, and really getting to know the customer. Is there a risk that that could be seen as being invasive to guest privacy by stalking them across a number of hotels? It's an extreme, I know, but...
Stalking, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the guest is in control.
Matthew.
Sorry, Stephen.
Just my 10 years in the industry.
I would say to that the guest is in control of what happens to that data. Ultimately,
Yeah, and I think you always have to give the customer the choice as well. So they need to feel that of course, they are in control, but they also have to be made aware. Don't bury your, unsubscribe buttons. Don't bury your update my preferences. Make it open. What we do once a year, we do have this campaign that we send out to our customers that maybe haven't been engaged for quite some time with us, especially in the last maybe kind of 12 weeks. And we do encourage them to review their preferences, to review which database they belong to, how they signed up. So we actively encourage them to do that.
and more of a personal opinion, really, and I think many people will agree, I think we're more inclined to provide data for something that's of benefit to us. Again, I think about the footballing world, where if you're a loyal fan of a football club, you're more likely to give data to that football club because in return you're going to get something tangible for that. And I think if you enjoy a stay in a hotel or have a preference for a hotel property, again, having had a nice experience, you're probably more inclined to be slightly more relaxed in terms of what quantity of data you allow that hotel to keep.
I think the technology nowadays allows the guests to choose what information they want to give, what data they are happy to share, and who they are happy to share it with. So as long as the systems are set up correctly, they will continue to collect the data that the guest is willing to share, and we can use it accordingly. And if the content that we deliver is relevant, they will be happy to read. They are happy to read and engage with, and not unsubscribe or not go dormant and continue to engage with brand.
Great. Well, thank you for the question. And to my panelists, thank you so much for your real tangible examples. I think it's clear to say that data has been and will continue to be a big thought-provoking topic, but it's really about acting and implementing and leveraging that data in today's competitive environment. So thank you very much. So, Charles, I think we're doing okay for time now. I think we're on to the next panel discussion. So I'm going to put my other hat on. Thank you very much, guys.